In 2003, the Iranians, I don't know if they panicked a little bit. I don't know if, they had more. Well, I do know they had more reasonable people in charge of the country at the time. They had the moderate Khatami there as their leader. And I think this is an interesting point, and a point that could be made for the Iraq War and the people who supported it initially, and some Republicans and conservatives, et cetera, that perhaps Iran was scared of what had happened to Iraq. And so they came to us and they made us an offer.
Yeah, they made us an offer. In the story that I read, there was no date specified on when the offer came. I have to presume it was after the invasion.
No, we had done this story before, and I know that it was after the invasion.
Okay, it only makes sense if it was after the invasion.
And they came after the Iraq invasion, and they said, and look, and it could have been a case where if Bush was smart, he could have taken that offer and said, see, I told you, we scared the bejesus out of them. Shock and awe.
The argument they used about Libya, which was not really true, but it was perhaps not completely untrue also.
In Libya, there was a small factor involved there. Libya was on the road to making that decision a long, long time before the Iraq invasion. But here, they would have had a much better case.
Yeah, no question.
They would have said, look at what happened to Iran. See, now they're all of a sudden, they come to heel. Now, and the offer was, look, pretty much everything. We'll stop, funding the Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in the Palestinian territories. We'll let you have complete look at our nuclear program so that it's completely transparent, and you'll have the inspectors in there, everything. There wasn't really anything that they didn't give up in that offer, and they presented it to the United States.
And in case we weren't clear, that they would help control the situation in Iraq. They would use influence to try and stem. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to have been successful, but they would use their influence to try to stem the ethnic conflict in Iraq.
And in return, they really didn't ask for much. One, they said, just promise not to attack us, okay? And number two, hand over this group called Mujahideen al-Khalq. I love saying it that way. But anyway, this is what the State Department, our State Department, had called a terrorist group that was in favor of overturning the Iranian regime. And we'd had them labeled as terrorists until, of course, Rumsfeld, halfway through the Iraq War, decided, no, they're on our side. They're no longer terrorists. And the Pentagon started working with them. Please, anybody with the whole war on terror and terrorism, please spare me, okay? I mean, the MEK, that's the short version of Mujahideen al-Khalq, is a perfect example of we don't give a damn about terrorism. Terrorism is now a code word for he's against us, and now if you're with us, you're no longer a terrorist. If you kill civilians, you don't kill civilians, you look to overthrow government, we don't care at all. At all.
I think it means you're against us and you don't own planes.
Exactly. If you own planes, then you're just a conventional enemy. But since you don't have any good technology, then you're a terrorist.
Right.
All right, so they say hand over MEK, and at the time we thought that they were terrorists, and we didn't really care much about them, and we'd captured them in Iraq. So it's a great offer, and it is maniacal not to accept it. And for the life of me, this shows you how absolutely crazy Dick Cheney is. So Colin Powell says, done. Take it.
Take it.
Right? And Lawrence Wilkerson, who was the chief of staff for Colin Powell's like, done. Okay.
And the Mideast Iranian experts at the State Department, the career officials were like, this is, at the very least, let's pursue it. Let's start talking to them about it.
It's okay. I'm going to make it needless. Time for a needless analogy. See, if you play, fantasy sports, like fantasy football, somebody comes and offers you a great trade deal. You think they don't really know what they're doing. They're like, I don't know. I'll give you LaDainian Tomlinson for Muhsin Muhammad and Dallas Clark.
Nice.
Like a mediocre running receiver and tight end for like the best running back. This is how you respond. Yes, done, deal. Okay. In fact, it's such a good deal, you might not want to panic like that. You might be like, yeah, I guess. Let me think about it. You know what? All right. You play it cool. You know what I'm saying? You play it cool, but you take the offer immediately. You take it off the table. You shake on it. Spit in your hand. Whatever you got to do. Right? They take this back to the White House, and Dick Cheney says, this is a quote. It's from Lawrence Wilkerson, who was at the White House, who was the chief of staff for Colin Powell. We don't talk to evil.
We don't talk to evil.
No, come on. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, I guess if the Soviet Union had come in and surrendered to Dick Cheney, he'd be like, we don't talk to you.
Let me tell you about because of course Iran was in the axis of evil, and the Bush administration has decided that they and North Korea and Iraq were evil. You mentioned the Soviet Union; they were the evil empire. They were the Death Star of evil.
Every single American president worked on treaties with them, and we, SALT II.
Ronald Reagan talked to evil.
We don't talk to evil. What if evil comes and surrenders?
But did you see
We
that?
can talk to him then. I mean, Iran was giving you everything. No nuclear program.
Who is it? It's a evil.
And why did they not take the deal? Because they wanted war. Cheney didn't realize, oh, wow, maybe that if we don't take this deal, we'll have to have a conflict with them. Because the whole point was regime change, regime change, regime change.
And remember,
they wrote it in the Project for a New American Century, and that was the plan all along. All they ever wanted was war.
and one thing we do know that they were being honest about, which is I believe they were being honest about, the ease which they thought Iraq would happen. So at that point, they're thinking, no, we're going to steamroll through Iraq, and then when that's done and it's been successful, and this president who's going to ride popularity ratings of 80% and a timid Congress that's afraid to say anything and is run by our Republican boys anyway, then we're going to say this worked in Iraq. The next part of the evil empire is the axis of evil is Iran. We're going to roll through them. Of course they wanted that war. That is the only possible reason that they said no to this deal, to even consider the deal.
Last thing here, if you're a Republican or a conservative, I mean, at this point, don't you have to just stop for a second and think, are these guys even on my side? I mean, why? Why am I still in favor of these guys? Why on God's green earth would I support Dick Cheney and George Bush? Am I really a warmonger? Am I a warlord? What is it? Do I like people dying? I mean, why didn't they take that offer? You tell me, okay? You figure it out. You write us an email at theyoungturks.com, whatever it is. How can you possibly justify supporting this administration if you think Iran is the greatest threat on earth like they keep yelling? Why didn't they take it? Nuclear programs, stop funding terrorists, work with us on Al-Qaeda, work with us on Iraq. They gave us everything. How can you possibly support these guys still? It doesn't make any sense.